When it comes to living a happy and fulfilled life, one of the biggest challenges that we face can sometimes be our relationships. The relationship with our parents, our mum, dad, our siblings, brothers, sisters, our close partners, our friends. And there are some very damaging, toxic habits that we all pick up from time to time. So in this video, I'm going to go through the top 10 most toxic relationship habits and what you can do to avoid and replace them with something better. But before we get into them, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and click on the bell icon so you're notified each time a new video comes out. So the first one is tolerating and holding things in, not speaking your mind and in a way that is solution focused. Instead of just tolerating it and attacking the individual, speak it out, label it. And this is how you do it. Hey, can we just take a moment to pause? What's actually going on here? What I'm noticing is that when you were speaking to me just now, your tone was slightly disrespectful and it made me feel criticized and not so great. So what I think would be a better way is next time, if you don't mind, if you could address me in this way. So you're not only labeling the problem, you're doing it in a very neutral tone. You're focusing on the behavior, not the person. You're also offering a solution to that problem. What happens when we hold things in is something you know already. You build these things up over time and eventually you end up letting it out in one massive outburst, which just makes things more difficult and more problematic. Whereas in the tiny moments, if you address things as they appear, you get rid of them, you nip things in the bud, but you're also offering a solution, a way out of that problem. The second one is something which so many couples, so many people fall into. We live in this world where your romantic partner especially is like the pinnacle of all your happiness. But here's the thing, you want them to be your holiday partner, your business partner, your counselor, your friend, your boss, your judge, your jury, your everything. And so you put all of this pressure on one person. And what happens here is you fail to create the right balance of boundaries between what is healthy and what is unhelpful or unhealthy. Find other people to fulfill those needs. Don't look to one person, one individual to fulfill everything. And instead of focusing on one tree, create a forest, create an ecosystem where it's not just one person that builds your happiness up, that you go to for certain conversations or certain habits. Instead, look at the boundaries and realize that they are one person of many in this ecosystem of relationships that you're building. And the more you build that up, the more that relationship is going to be pressure free. It's going to be free of the anxiety and all of the expectations that you build upon it, making it easier for you and your partner to live a happy, fulfilled life. Listen, we are all flawed creatures. We are all going to go through ebbs and flows, even the most perfect person. But what happens so often is we make that flawed moment, that moment where that person is being human about us. Why aren't they talking to me? Why aren't they sharing this? Why aren't they making me laugh? Is there something wrong? And so what was a very small thing becomes a very big thing. So I'm here to say, stop doing that. Stop making these flawed human moments about you and accept that this person, just like you, goes through moments of laziness, of productivity, of being uninspired, of being inspired, of being fulfilled, of being unfulfilled, and deal with the waves as they come. One day they may be focused on you. They may be the partner you want. Generally, over time, most of the time. But some days they might not be. Allow that person to have a human moment and stop making it so much about you. The fourth toxic habit that you should avoid at all costs is creating a generalized, distorted story about someone based on a singular moment. we have this bias, this negative bias to remember the one instance where somebody messed up. Let's say, for example, you're in a relationship where most of the time your partner, 70 to 80% of the time is really patient with you, is really kind, compassionate. But there was that one time where they spoke to you with disrespect, where they got angry, where they made a mountain out of a molehill. And what happens? We make that the story. We remember that moment, and then we start attaching more evidence to it until we build up this idea, this picture that this person is impatient and lazy. And the problem here is that when that becomes the story you create about someone, your brain has a confirmation bias. You're going to seek the evidence that supports that hypothesis. So instead, be open-minded, be critical. Ask yourself when you judge somebody, is it really true? The fifth one, and this is really damaging, is creating what I call a relationship scorecard. What do I mean by this? Well, let's say today I buy my partner dinner. And let's say 2 weeks later, I plan the day out that we've spent together. And then a few weeks later, I pay for dinner again. And what happens? I start to build up a scorecard. Well, I've paid for the last 3 dinners. Now, obviously, if this is overwhelmingly one-sided, that's different. But we start to build up this scorecard of the things you did and the things they didn't. The time where they were angry and you were patient. And so you put yourself on this pedestal where you again are judging who they are. You're building up this idea of how they're showing up. And it's influenced, it's biased, it's flawed by this scorecard that you keep. And the more you keep this scorecard, what happens? You build up this idea that I'm a bit more perfect than they are. And the chances are there are 2 people in the relationship and 2 scorecards and 1 moment. And so you end up living in this reality where you're both judging each other. So let go of the scorecard and find more compassion, more gratitude in the person, the human being in front of you. The next one is dropping hints and being passive aggressive. You've seen it in WhatsApp groups. You've probably seen it on Facebook, social media, where we don't like the behavior that we've seen. And instead of addressing it openly, fairly, non-judgmentally, we try and scheme and position and posture around it by making little comments. A relationship is always about connecting more or exiting more, engaging more or becoming more passive. And when you're passive aggressive, it's about being polite but nice, shaking someone's hand but really being annoyed on the inside, doing something to undercut them later. If you really want a powerful relationship, start being really honest, because the people that can't handle it, they will disengage. But the people that can, the people that want to commit more, that want to engage more, that want to really be a part of your life, they will not only engage, but they will engage in that dialogue. They will discuss what's happening before you. Number 7 is something we are all guilty of doing because of the media, because of the films that we watch, and it's projecting this idea of how things should be. And what I mean by this is, maybe you go on a date and the person sat in front of you is a decent catch. You know that they're attractive, they have good personality traits, or even if it's your partner that you've been with for so many years, or a friend that you've known for decades, you start getting this idea of they should be behaving a certain way. They should be opening a door for me. They should be splitting that bill. They should be behaving in a certain way based on an idea that you created that perhaps you're not so conscious of. And what I want you to do is think about, where did that idea come from? When you judge what someone should do versus what they do, there is a gap. How did you create this idea? How helpful is this idea? Number 8 is making threats to the end of the relationship, having your hand on the exit door. This is damaging, this is toxic, because what you're doing is you're holding the relationship hostage. Let's say you have an argument, there is a big blow up, when you start to talk about the relationship ending, that person leaving you or you leaving them, what you're beginning to do is destroy all possibility of real communication. If there is an argument, the point is not to talk about not being right for each other, or not being right for them, or them not being right for you, but to constructively, maturely, compassionately discuss what happened, what the next steps are, and to find the next step forward, taking it moment by moment. But when we begin to create the dialogue that damages trust of this relationship ending, we start to hold that person and the relationship hostage, and that does neither of you any favors. Number 9 is seeking something extraordinary, something dramatic, and not being okay with the ordinariness of a relationship. When I look at the relationship I have with my brother, or my friends, or my colleagues, it's quite ordinary. We meet up, we work, we eat some food, we play football, we go surfing, we go on holiday. There's not this pressure to constantly make this relationship extraordinary. There is love in the ordinary. There is love in sitting, drinking tea or coffee in total silence and reading a book together. It doesn't always have to be this big, magnificent gesture every single day where you are constantly being drawn off your feet. And when you create this idea, it's like a drug. You can never get enough. Once one romantic gesture ends, you're constantly waiting for the next. And that's a huge act to play. It's a huge pressure and burden to put on a human being who is going through their own stuff, who has their own goals, their own dreams. And the final one is blaming your partner for your emotions. When you do this, you create codependent tendencies. You're basically saying, I'm angry because you made me angry. And so you create a paradigm where you are the victim and they are the perpetrator. And that means that because you're not in control, because you can't choose how you respond to a situation, they are constantly at fault. And again, you're leeching and holding onto them. This is something that I've seen so many times over the years. You are responsible for how you feel. You are responsible for how you respond to how you feel. You are responsible for communicating what's happening, for the emotions that come up, for managing that emotion, for communicating that effectively, and explaining what's happening for you and what you need from that person. There is not a single person on this world that can control and choose and shape the way that you feel and the way you show up like you. So if there's anything that you've learned from this video, it's to take responsibility for how you show up, for the mental stories that you create in your relationship, of how you want to behave and the other person needs to be present, to be compassionate, and to let go of these massive, magnanimous, magnificent expectations that we create of this human being, because that's what they are. So, which one of these 10 toxic habits was the most life-changing for you? The one that really hit home? Tell me in the comments below. And make sure, as always, you accept only the best in your relationships from yourself. That you work every single day to make it what you want it to be. You absorb what's useful. You discard the toxic habits that are not. And you add what is uniquely and truly your own. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.